Hi everybody, and thank you for coming to this session in the evening. In this buff, you're going to see a number of practical use cases where NetBeans IDE was used to create JSF-based applications. My name is Geert-Jan. I'm a member of the NetBeans team, and this is actually the first of two parts. So in this part, you'll see three use cases where NetBeans IDE turned to be very useful. Tomorrow, from 10 to 11, next door in Ballroom 4, there'll be another session, part 2 of this, where there'll be a complete application created from scratch. It will be done by myself together with Çağatay Cibici, who is the lead developer and architect and founder of the Prime Faces component suite. So if you want to see how Prime Faces is used in a real context, together with Maven, Java E6, come tomorrow to see that application being put together. For today, 3 speakers, each with a specific challenge. The first, Johannes Weigend, who will show you how a semantic search and navigate functionality was built into an application using JSF and NetBeans, and what the benefits were of that combination. Secondly, Glenn Holmer will show you another situation where many different sites need to be created from the same code base with a small team of developers. And finally, David Heffelfinger will show and talk about how an application was built in a couple of weeks. So we'll start immediately, and at the end of those 3 use cases, we can open the floor to any discussion and questions and follow-up that anyone might have. So let's start immediately with Johannes.
Thank you very much for your brief welcome. My name is Johannes Weigend. I'm from Germany, Munich. I'm CTO of a small but excellent software engineering company near Munich, Rosenheim. It's located in the Bavarian Alps. And I'm also teacher, lector at the University of Applied Science. And we use for all our projects in the university NetBeans, and we use them last time for more and more projects in our company NetBeans. It's growing. In the next 10 minutes, I will show you about a use case using NetBeans, Prime Faces, Glassfish, and Solr to build an
and Maven, right?
And Maven, right? To build an enterprise search application. The problem for such a application is many customers has data in different applications and data silos. And you can't do a search over everything, but you need searches over everything. So you get in one system and look around in the other and integrate everything by hand or on paper or dash or clipboard in the system. And many customers need a solution for that. And we built a solution which is based on Apache Solr. That's the backend. It's an enterprise search server for doing enterprise search, for indexing text data, for indexing relational data or from different data sources. We have built OSGI components on top of that for core functionality and for the UI functionality. The UI is done with Prime Faces with a light framework. It's called Common UI in the screenshot. And the development is done with NetBeans. It's very interesting. I will show you this application shortly live. As you see here, it's a normal search application. And you can look around and search for things. I find my customer. He has one car, and the car itself has relations to other business objects like technical information, documents. In such a search system, it's fairly common to use a faceted search. We have here faceted search. If I want to see everything what's with the oil can has to do, I see here we have two documents which belongs to that that case, and I can look at this document and can from that document navigate to other informations and can click through everything in my system and can navigate and search. And this application I want to show you how to build with NetBeans, Maven and Glassfish a little bit from the scratch. And it starts with a Maven web application.
And this is not from a plugin. This is part of the standard download of NetBeans IDE.
This is that standard NetBeans IDE. I call it JSearch. It shows the Glassfish server I use. And I get an empty application with some sample HTML files. The first thing I want to use to adjust the frameworks, and I can use. I want to use Java server faces, and on the component framework I want to use prime faces, which is very useful, as you've seen before. And then I have a generated project which compiles on every build server. I delete the sample files, I don't want to use them. The first thing, if you develop a JSF application, you need a template for your style to make every page common, to have the same footer and header, and I name it template. And I instantiate it as a template with a template client. It's the index page, and I select the template, and I want to have another page, a page for search results, and this page uses also the same template. You can see it's very easy to use JSF templates. So, if we start and edit the template, the pages, the index page has only content, the result page has only content, and the template defines the header and the footer. So I can define the header and the footer. The header is JSearch, our sample, and the footer is Java 1. And here we go, we have pages. When I start to program JSP, I can use the auto-completion of prime faces, but I have prepared a form, normal HTTP form, HTML form, and the only thing I have to fix are some namespaces for the XML. And here I have an output label, input text, and comment button. And as you see, I need a controller, and the controller is also done by Wizard. I say I make a search controller, and the search controller is a normal Java object with an annotation in Pojo, and it stores my expression, and it's has a list of result rows, and the list of result rows is currently not known. And here comes Maven. I can look in my Maven repository to find this type, and NetBeans perfectly recognizes that I have this type in a search component which I want to use. The search component itself is very complicated. If you have to adjust your class paths by hand, you add 20 or more libraries. I insert some getter code. It's done. And I insert a search logic, which I have prepared. In 10 minutes it's not possible to type everything. So we have an index page, we have a result page. Here I need a table. I want to have a JSF table. And here we are. I can start the project and hopefully everything gets right. It's deployed. I see the header and the footer. You can easily adjust it with artwork and make it really professional. I have a search expression field where can I do a search. And as you see, the search goes into the Solr server and every record is shown.
Cool. Very cool.
Ich bin.
Oh, yes.
Ich mach Schluss, genau. Stop. Well, the last thing I want to mention is NetBeans is not also a good IDE in the sense of the wizards work and it's perfect to work and do rapid prototyping and rapid things like I shown. It's also open for own plugins. This is an application we did last year. It's a total separate application. It's with the NetBeans platform. And you, if you are not very familiar with NetBeans, you even don't recognize that it's NetBeans. And you can do your own code plugins to do analysis, to do custom generators or things like that with the NetBeans platform, and that's very handy. So for me and for our company, NetBeans is a very cool IDE. The functionality is good tested. The most of the time it works as intended. I got no nasty bugs. This is for professional users more important than the last plugin on the open source market which doesn't work. And we have used IntelliJ for years, and Eclipse doesn't make a job for us. We ever had problems with warnings and stuff like that. The Maven integration doesn't work. That wasn't a problem here. NetBeans is the best open source IDE, I think, and that's what I contribute here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So next up we have Glenn, who's going to talk about a different use case, but equally interesting and challenging. Perfect.
All right. So can everyone hear me okay? This is a little bit about me. I guess you can see from the list why I never get anything done. Our challenge is a little bit different. What Johannes was talking about is creating a big app from scratch. And in our case, we already have the big app, and we need to make more of them because what happened with us, like many other companies, our web business absolutely exploded in recent years. And we have a number of different brands. And management said, well, we need another website. We need another website for this brand. And you know what? We just bought out our Australian licensee, so we need yet another website for that same brand. And it just went on and on from there. And in order to save our resources, make the most use out of our resources, what we did was we decided to make all of those sites from a single NetBeans project. I don't know if any of you were at the NetBeans Day on Sunday. I talked just a little bit about how we use the hooks in the NetBeans build scripts to copy in the right facelets pages for each site when we build. So we just basically push a button and get the right website. But this is the other part of the story. Here's a picture of some of the sites. they have the same database schema and the same code underlying them, but as you can see, there's a lot of difference in the way they look, the look and feel, and there are some subtle differences in the way they behave as well.
And it's all about selling shoes.
It's all about selling shoes, big shoes, little shoes. So yeah, so there is some commonality there. But we've had to create new sites in as little as 3 weeks. And when the word comes down, you make it happen. So the features of JSF that helped us do that I want to talk about are, first of all, JSF templating and a little bit about view parameters. And the little things that NetBeans gives you, the little hints and tweaks that NetBeans gives you to make this all possible are really what, again, like I say, made it possible for us to do this. And then I'll talk just a little bit about component library recognition. It's kind of, again, the other side of what Johannes was talking about with prime faces, because we're an ice faces shop here. So here is just a little bit showing one of the pages from inside the site. This is just a regular product grid page like you see on a million web pages all over the world. How many people here are using JSF 2.0 with Facelets Templating? A lot of people. So, this probably looks very familiar to you. You can see that on the left it's showing that style grid is the actual page that holds everything in here, and on the far right you can see the template that it's made from, which is called main grid template. And then within that are all different little tiny pieces of code that are just strung together from that template. And when we need to create a new site, it's very simple. We just pick one out, say, well, this new site is very similar to what we're doing on this site, so we'll take a copy of that little file from the source code, stick it in here. But this other part is a lot like this other site that we're doing, so we'll snip out a little part from there. And then we start tweaking it, and finally we get what we want. Here's a picture of that outer containing page, that style grid page. And you can see in the first circled bit of code there that it specifies the template that the composition is made from. And then there's a define there. Those of you that have worked with this before, this. I'm sure this all looks very familiar. And then here's the template itself. Excuse me. So I'd like to just flip over here, if I could, to NetBeans, and we'll take a little bit stronger look at it, closer look at it. So
wait,
here's that.
Do you have a terminal window right in there?
Yes, I actually do. This is, I don't know how many of you use this if you're using NetBeans. There's whoops, I have to spell right, but. So there's a terminal right in there, and I'll use that to connect to databases and things like that. So actually I just started using this recently. It's yet another one of those features that makes you never have to leave NetBeans. I have my terminal there and everything. Here, I hope everyone can see this. This is the head, and here's the body, and here we're seeing where we're doing some includes and so forth. Now, if you look, what NetBeans is providing to us is this area up here. This is a relatively small piece of code, but you can imagine if you had a giant thing, it'd be hard to navigate. And if you look up here, these are actually links. So if I want to know, geez, I'm inside one of these, which is inside one of these, which is inside one of these, where is that form? And you just click on it, and there it is, which is very nice, helps us a lot. That's the template. This is the outermost one. And also NetBeans, you would expect this, but of course it gives you all kinds of code completion. So we have this kind of code completion here and here, right, with all the Java doc and everything. And it's really nice to have this in the front end, in the JSF pages. I mean, obviously you're expecting that in your Java code, but it's nice to have it here as well, because we're making that link between the front end and the back end code by clicking on this stuff. So here, I think is the other one I wanted to show. Well, here's a real good example of how deeply nested we are. And gee, where did this all come from? We're iterating through a panel series here. Where did I put that panel series? Well, you just click up here and boom, there it is. There it is. It was right up there. So that helps us a lot. Here's another example of the code completion, the class, and the stuff that goes with it. what NetBeans also gives you is the ability to go straight to the Java code from the JSF page. So if you hold down Control, you'll see that it now highlights, and if I click here, poof, there's the Java code that's behind it. So it's the things like that, the little things like that, that are really helpful to us. Let me just switch back here for a minute. So another feature of JSF that's really helped us a lot is view parameters. How many people are familiar with view parameters and how that works in JSF? Yeah. So we have some searching here too. It's completely different than what Johannes was doing, and it's not as sophisticated either. But what happens is this ends up in the URL as request parameters. So here we see the code for that. We've got the fparam, which gives us the parameter that we put in there, and of course include view params means that it's going to go right on the URL as a request parameter. And these are this is the receiving end of those same variables. So you can see here that these are the oh, I'm sorry. These are these here, style, size, width, color. Those are actually the. Oh, I'm on 5. Sorry. Let me try this. It's running. Trust me. Okay, so those are actually the different search parameters in the drop-down there that I had on a previous slide. So you can see here the customer can search by this way, by that way, by another way, and any one of those will come down, I'm sorry, through these and into the URL. And again, we're seeing the same thing here with the code completion and so forth that NetBeans helps us with. All of this stuff becomes so easy because you just, it's like you have a secretary there saying, oh, excuse me, is this what you were looking for? You know, and it's very easy to find things. One more thing I wanted to talk about here is component library recognition. Now, Johannes was using prime faces, and we're using ice faces. So prime faces, of course, is bundled with NetBeans, but ice faces isn't. Notice, though, that it's telling us if you want to include ice faces, here's what you have to do. It's telling us what to do and basically laying it out for us. So if we go back to the code and we step up here, by the way, this is built. Excuse me. This is built as an enterprise app with the enclosing project, and then an EJB jar project, and 2 WAR projects, one for the storefront and one for the customer service interface. But if you look at the properties for the storefront sub-application or sub-project, you can see, well, sure enough, frameworks, Java server faces, and here's your choice of components, and it says, yes, we're using ice faces. So when we click on more, that's when we get that dialog, and it's telling us, oh yes, by the way, you need to include icefaces.jar. Would you like me to help you create a library? So you push the button, and it says, okay, I'm going to create this library, and then you just add what you need into it. So in all these ways, NetBeans has helped us save a lot of time, and it's helped us to make the most of a small team. 3 developers and 3 Java developers and 2 web developers. We have 9 sites out and many more to come, unfortunately.
Thank you. Okay. And so the final contribution, David Heffelfinger talking on a similar but different topic relating to JSF and NetBeans.
Yeah, go back. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm David Heffelfinger. I wrote a book on NetBeans and Java EE development, published by Pack Publishing. I own a company which is a one-man show, just me. So I'm essentially a consultant. I get to pick my own title, so I'm the CTO. Okay, nobody else in that company. All right. I just want to tell a story. Like I said, I do some consulting. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and recently a client hired me to help them build a Java web-based application. Now, this client, they had an existing Java application, but it was an old struts application running on a J2E application server. Of course, I wanted to convince them to upgrade their application server so we could use the newer technologies. So I told them about, if you upgrade your app server, we can use these modern APIs that there's not as much boilerplate code, not as much configuration, it's a lot more productivity, but this were business types and managers, and they weren't really getting it. So I tried a different approach. I wrote a proof of concept application using prime faces. And as you guys just saw, prime faces just renders beautifully out of the box. And I showed it to them. And I said, if you want the new application to look like this, you have to upgrade your application server. And that convinced them. They actually did. We started using Glassfish. So if you guys are having trouble convincing your management to upgrade, that's one technique that you could try. Anyway, once we get that out of the way, the client said, okay, let's do it. You're going to have 30 developers to help you out. And I was like, yes, that's good news. But they also said you have 3 weeks to finish the whole thing. And that was not such good news. It's a big application, lots of pages, lots of code. So, well, it was a challenge, but I tried it. So before the 3 weeks started, I did have some time to go through the requirements and come up with the initial architecture and whatnot. And I wrote some framework code, then met with the development team. The 30 developers. Whoops. Before that, I showed how to build the pages and whatnot using NetBeans. And I know some people can get very religious about the IDE, so I didn't require everybody to move to NetBeans, but it was recommended. Now, when they saw all the things that I was doing with NetBeans, how productive I was, out of 30 developers, 29 decided to move to NetBeans. We did have one IntelliJ IDEA guy that just wouldn't budge and kept using it. We were using Maven, so you can use different IDEs. So we weren't tied to a specific IDE.
And that's definitely a good way to go if you don't want to be tied to an IDE, because Maven defines its own project, and all IDEs can deal with that in some way.
Correct. So incredibly, it was a lot of work, lots of long hours. It was very hectic, but we were able to deliver. We even had some developers that were .NET developers, and we're just starting with Java. And we did deliver in 3 weeks. And these are the features that from NetBeans that I believe made it possible. The first thing was the Glassfish integration. Developers of the old application for this client, they had to start the app server from the command line, and they had to deploy from the command line. There was no integration. So when they saw that during my demo, they really liked that. So that was something that that really helped us out. Like I mentioned, all the Java guys, or most of the Java guys, were using Eclipse, and NetBeans has Eclipse key bindings. We were under tight deadlines, so we didn't have time for the developers to get used to new keyword shortcuts. So using the Eclipse keyword shortcuts helped us out. Just like Johannes showed, the generating faceless pages from a template. I wrote a template that had the banner and the menu, all the common areas, and everybody just by pointing and clicking could generate their pages and fill in the blanks. So that helped us out. And the big thing was JPA code generation, both entities and DAOs. We had to write very little database access code. Most of it was generated. We essentially had to write a few JPA queries here and there, but for the most part, it was all generated. It was a given, and without that, I don't think we would have ever met that deadline. Do you have time for a demo?
Definitely.
Yeah. We can switch to this one. Okay, I'm just gonna write an application from scratch. When you start a new project, web project, and you select JSF and pick prime faces like Johannes showed, out of the box, immediately you get this page that is generated by NetBeans. So you have a starting point. That's using prime faces. What I want to show is the JPA entity generation. So I'm going to use the sample database that comes with NetBeans. Okay. Okay. And that should do it. Okay, and here are our entities. Let's take a look at one of them. It's a JPA entity. A bunch of name queries are generated. Pretty basic stuff, but writing that by hand will be time consuming. So once we have that, we can generate a DAO or facade. Let's pick all of them. All right. Again, let's take a look at one of them. Okay. So we can see there's very little code here. The reason is all of these DAOs inherit from a parent class, and all the CRUD operations are defined on the parent class. Okay. So now that we have that, let's create a JSF managed bean. Okay, we're going to use the customer facade, so we need the EJB annotation. All right, and we need a method that's going to be invoked when the app server instantiates the bean, so we need the @post construct annotation. Okay. We're just going to call find all. Of course, we need to assign that to a field, so we can just say refactor, introduce field. Okay, and here it is. And we need some getters and setters. So I'll insert. And off we go. We have our managed bean, so now we need to make a few changes to the Facelets page. Data table. For customer. What did I call my managed bean? Yeah, new JSF, the default. Okay. All right. Now we need a column. And name. Now if we run our application, should show up here. And all this data came from the database. It looks nice, it looks beautiful. It took, what, 5 minutes to generate that. So this kind of productivity is what allowed us to.
And now add another column in the table and save the page.
My microphone just fell. Sure. Hold on a second.
My favorite feature. Favorite productivity feature coming up.
Yeah. Should I just bring something else from the JPA entity? Let's try that. City.
Okay.
Okay.
So the page is saved.
I just saved and
refresh the browser.
Reload. So there's a new column.
So there's no explicit need to redeploy the application. Make a change, save the change, whatever it is, anywhere in the application, refresh the browser, and you see the result.
Yep.
You done?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Are there any questions from anyone about anything that you've seen or would like to see? I believe. Do you know the answer to that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question was, if you have your own component library, like prime faces, rich faces, isolate your own component library, would NetBeans automatically provide the code completion and all these features for you? Or would you need to create a whole plugin that provides that?
No, it does. When I was writing that 3-week application, I was writing custom components for the application, and code completion worked just fine. Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Oh no. Someone was stretching, not asking. Well, to round off the story, this is all fine and good, but if you're on the netbeans.org page, there's also a Docs and Support tab where you see a lot of documentation, including a section on Java EE and Java web applications. So on here you find an incredible amount of resources to help you get started creating all kinds of Java EE related applications, including a NetBeans e-commerce tutorial. So this whole section builds up a complete application that is quite extensive.
Your screen is now.
Oh, sorry, all this I'm doing you're not seeing. Okay. Just to return to where I started my little story. If you're on the netbeans.org homepage and you click on the Docs and Support tab, and you go to the Java EE and Java Web Applications learning trail, there are a lot of tutorials. There's a long list of screencasts that's continually growing, pointing to YouTube and other places. But there's also a NetBeans e-commerce tutorial, and this whole section builds up one single application, very similar to the applications you've seen. And there is this application, if I'm correct. Yes, so here is the live application that you can create via the steps, via the various parts of that particular tutorial. So a real business application that you get at the end of it, with a shopping cart and all the expected functionality. So there's really a lot of tutorials to help you get started with Java EE and using the technologies you've seen. Are there any other questions or points? Yes?
How do you turn on the Eclipse key bindings?
Yes, how do you turn on Eclipse key bindings? I don't actually have NetBeans started up. Can someone else with NetBeans up? Okay, so we'll switch to David.
Yes, I can find it. I believe this is under options. Key map.
NetBeans, Eclipse,
There you go.
Emacs. Just make that switch, and you can use your old keyboard shortcuts.
There's a VI plugin if anybody's used to VI. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming in the evening and joining our session. And remember, tomorrow is part 2 at 10 o'clock next door in Ballroom 4, unlocking the Java E6 platform, where the Java E6 specification is explained by means of an extended demo. So no slides, just code tomorrow. Thanks very much.